or no, I got a DM from Andrew one day. And the one thing, if anyone listening to this knows Andrew, he's a very direct guy. He won't say hi, hello, hope you're well, any of that. He just asked if he could buy the company. He was just like, can I buy your company? And like, you take over 80/20. I was a bit taken aback. Long story short, after lots of thinking about it and like talking with like people that I trust, I was like, yeah, this actually is like a really cool way to like, this is another, I feel like another turning point in my career. I feel like the Chance stuff was one and put me on the map, and it got Websterpeace to be in a great place. But like, this is the next turning point. This feels like a cheat code to associate with someone that's done so much and built so much great stuff and so many great companies. It feels like a win. Yeah, I took over. I sold the company. The rest is history.
Hello, and welcome to episode number 71 of the Rose Bros podcast. It's been a while since the last episode. The reason? I've been experimenting with other creative projects like the Rose Bros NFT collection on Rarible, and I've also been learning how to program. Learning to program has been a big time commitment, but has been a goal of mine for quite some time. Nevertheless, the podcast continues. In this episode, we are joined by Matt Varughese, CEO of 80/20, a low-code, no-code web design firm. Instead of expensive developers, 80/20 uses modern platforms to design, build, and automate websites, mobile apps, internal dashboards, and more. Prior to 80/20, Matt built and eventually sold another low-code, no-code web design company called Websterpeace, which was later acquired by 80/20, the company Matt would eventually become CEO of. 80/20 is now a portfolio company of Andrew Wilkinson's Teeny Capital and includes investor Shane Parrish from Farnam Street as one of its major owners. We sat down for a smooth cup of Rose Bros coffee and talked about founding a web design agency, selling a web design agency, the value of low code, no code, giving away your work for free, good business books, learning to code, and a lot more. Enjoy. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
For someone that does listen to this, you are the owner of 80/20. What is 80/20 and what do you guys do?
Yeah, 80/20 is a no-code product studio. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they say, what the hell is no-code? Which is a very fair question. No-code is essentially this new form of software development that allows you to build websites, web apps, mobile apps without having to write code. And so think of it kind of like Lego blocks or a visual builder. You still have to have, basic knowledge of how a properly set up website or web app works, or like how databases work, but like you don't have to know the syntax of and the nuances of writing code. And so it allows companies to, one, move faster, and then two, spend less money on software development because it takes less time and less work. And three, a lot of people can empower largely what we see as their marketing teams to take over the stuff that engineering and IT generally handles, which is a win for everyone. Engineering doesn't want to touch that, but marketing does, but marketing doesn't know how to code. So yeah, 80/20 is a no-code product studio headquartered in Victoria, British Columbia.
And business is going pretty well, roughly 7-figure revenue.
Yeah, business is going well. 80/20 is doing 7 figures in revenue right now. We're about 11 heads big, full-time head-end contractors. We're probably at 15. It's good. We're fully booked until the end of this year. Things are going well. We're taking a team vacation this year, which will be our first ever. We're going to Mexico. So everything is going great so far.
How'd you get into the world of web design and whatnot?
Well, like you with the Rose Bros, I was going to the church I've grown up in. And at the time they were like, we need a website. And I was in high school, didn't know how to do that. But I was also in a class called Fundamentals of Technology, where they taught us how to use Weebly. And after Weebly, it was Dreamweaver. And I was so fascinated with this concept that I could build something from my computer and anyone in the world with an internet connection could access it. So over time, I started honing in my design development skills. I'm a terrible designer. No one on my team would call me a designer to this day, because I'm not. But come senior year of high school, I'm a child of an immigrant. And as a child of an immigrant, you have 3 choices when you're done with high school. It is become a doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. And that's everyone in my family. And I hate all of those things. And so I was like, why don't I really enjoy web design, web development. Why don't I just start this company? I was like, maybe I could just like sell websites and sell to local businesses, and maybe that's how I could like have a career. I tried to not go to college. My parents made me go. So I still went to school as an engineer for like 3 years. And then I switched to finance after it because I was so miserable as an engineer. But like in those 3 years, I built Websterpeace. And Websterpeace was one of those things where I was really young. I didn't know what to call it. You know, at some points it was a full service marketing agency. At some point it was a ad agency. At some point it was a web design agency. When I got to the web design agency, I was like, all right, I need to stop floundering around. Like, this is what I like. Stop being full service. Like, this is what I want to do. So I honed in on that. And then honestly, I kept my head down building. And one of the things that I did to get me where I am today is I still do this. I still maintain a list called a dream clients list. Mm-hmm. It's just an iCloud note on my phone, and it's got a handful of people on there. And one of the people on there was Chance the Rapper, who's a famous rapper here in the States. Yeah. One of the things I did is like, I tweeted it. The tweet still exists. It says, I'll work with Chance the Rapper someday, somehow. Essentially, I was like, how do I get on this guy's map? I want to build his website. How do I do it? Mm-hmm. So I kept trying to think of like new ideas. The way I came up with was like, at the time, Snapchat geo filters, like you put on your stories, they were really new. And they cost almost nothing to like buy one for like a temporary event. Mm-hmm. And Chance was on tour at the time. And so I'm a terrible designer, but I designed Snapchat filters, and then I put it at his shows. And then I just kept emailing his manager. I was like, hey man, like here are the stats. Like I just guessed the email, and I was like, let's do something. It was a long time of me, like that whole thing, I funded it myself. Cause even after they saw, and they responded after the second email, they're like, yo, this is dope. What's your story? But like, I paid for the rest of the tour, but like I said, it was so cheap. So like tour ended, and I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? I didn't get to build the website. And like, this is the way I want to do it. Like, mm-hmm. How do I get here? And how do I get further in my web design career? And one day his manager posted on his Instagram story, and was like, hey, I need someone to build me a website. And I was like, yo, that's what I do. I'm not a Snapchat filter guy. This is just how I wanted to get your attention. I responded to him. I built the wine company website. And then after that was done, they were like, hey, do you want to like work with us on like Chance's website and like build on, we built a couple things for him. Mm-hmm. One of them was Rapper Radio, which we built is a web app we built for him on Webflow. And it was at that point that I was like, oh man, this is it. This is like I want to be doing web design. Cause like you get to work with cool people. Everyone needs a website. A lot of people's, especially celebrities' websites suck. And I feel like that was the big turning point in my career. Getting to work with him, going out to Chicago for the album release, like working with Squarespace's corporate office on the new website. Yeah, I feel like that's what put me on the map, so to speak, with everyone else, and that got what my company Websterpeace a lot of traction. That's how I got into and web design.
And that was your first business. I think you sold that one or moved on from that?
Yeah. So later that year of Chance's album release, I am a big Andrew Wilkinson fan. Andrew Wilkinson is my now business partner. And just like every other person I know that likes Andrew, and honestly, most of the other CEOs, I feel like we all had tweet notifications on for him. Just because, like, I don't know, he's like one of the few people that I was like, I like the way you think. You seem like a genuine dude. And one day he tweeted that he needed someone to build a website for him called Berkshire Nerds. Where anyone can go buy a bronze bust of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yo, this is me. I know e-commerce really well. I know Webflow really well. I'm a moderator for Webflow. Let me go like shoot my shot. Mm-hmm. So I did. Met Andrew. Andrew DM'd me. We did the whole deal over Twitter DMs. And he was like, cool, let's start. And so we did it. I got a DM from Andrew like a couple months later, and he was like, hey, I'm starting a no-code agency. Like, do you want to come work at it? And I was like, nah, I'm good. And he was like, okay, well, I mean, maybe you could contract for us from time to time. And I was like, okay, yeah, actually, that sounds cool. I just didn't want to quit the company I was building for so long mm-hmm. and go take a job. So we started 80/20 contracted Websterpeace at the time to do projects together, which is kind of crazy to think about that, considering I would take over the company in like 6 months from then. But yeah, so like I had no idea about this. And then 6 months later, the CEO of 80/20 decided to step down, just focus on being with his family. And I got an email from me, I got a DM from Andrew one day. And the one thing, if anyone listening to this knows Andrew, he's a very direct guy. He won't say hi, hello, hope you're well, any of that. Mm-hmm. He just asked if he could buy the company. He was just like, can I buy your company and like you take over 80/20? I was a bit taken aback. Long story short, after lots of thinking about it and like talking with like people that I trust, I was like, yeah, this actually is like a really cool way to like, this is another, I feel like another turning point in my career. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Chance stuff was one and put me on the map and it got Websterpeace to be in a great place. But like, this is the next turning point. This feels like a cheat code to associate with someone that's done so much and built so much great stuff and so many great companies. It feels like a win. So yeah, I took over, I sold the company, and the rest is history.
And now you're the CEO of 80/20, which is owned by Teeny Capital, Andrew Wilkinson?
Yep. So 80/20 is majority owned by Andrew Wilkinson, then me, and then I'm not sure if you know him, Shane Parrish. He owns Cirrus Partners. But yeah, there's three of us.
Very cool. And just for anyone that does listen, to give context to Andrew, he's Victoria, BC, Canada, very successful investor. I think he originally was in web design too.
Yeah, his story is fascinating because he started MetaLab from his parents' basement. MetaLab is responsible for designing the first versions of Slack. I think they did Coinbase's mobile app. They do companies that are valued, like they do the design and dev for companies that are valued at like $1 billion nowadays. So yeah, he started that from his basement from the ground up, and I think now they have like 200 employees or something like that. He might actually be, I think someone told me that he's one of Victoria's largest employers. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
He's since branched out into investing in other companies and whatnot, but I think originally, he started as a web designer.
And MetaLab is where he started that at. Like that's what he started, and then that became successful. And he rolled that into Tiny Capital. He was like, hey, how do I like make this a portfolio company? He calls it the Berkshire Hathaway of internet companies. Mm-hmm. So instead of buying railroads and whatever and insurance companies, he's buying tech companies. Mm-hmm. And his whole thesis is like, he doesn't buy it to flip it. He buys it and holds it forever because he just cares about profit instead of like flipping it and then going on to the next thing. So he owns, I think 40 plus companies now. The one he most recently bought is AeroPress.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
Very cool. Awesome to be associated with someone like that.
Yeah, it's fun. He's a really good dude. It's one of those things where everyone is always like, oh, be careful about who you go into business with. And like I am, but like it's one of those things where you meet the guy and you're like, oh, yeah, we think largely the same. Yep. You seem like a genuinely stand-up dude. And it was a risk, but the guy is so helpful for me. Even when I was having trouble trying to buy a house last year, because I'm still self-employed on my tax returns, so it's incredibly hard here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I texted him. It was a Saturday. I texted him. I told him I was having trouble. I asked if he knew any bankers. 5 minutes later, one of the largest lenders in America called me. And was like, hey, we were told to help out with your loan process, and I got funded. So yeah, it's cool being in his company, in his circle.
I'm also a big Buffett, Charlie Munger fan. I have, you ever read this one, The Almanac?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's kind of what caught my attention with Andrew also is I've read a lot of Berkshire and Charlie Munger and all that.
Nice.
So are you super technical? Did you learn how to code along the way?
Man. So as part of my engineering school stuff, I did have to learn how to code, and it was like C#. Okay. And I was like, and I guess learning code is a stretch. Anyone that's an actual engineer would be like, all right, sit the hell down. It was like one semester, and I was like, oh my God, coding is the worst thing in the world. But the thing I learned is that the education system just sucks the life out of anything cool. Exactly. So like coding was actually fun, but like doing it in a school setting and having the pressure of that, it just like drained the life out of me. And plus I think, just like I don't like working in the terminal, and that's largely what those languages that we were trained to do live in. Mm-hmm. When I started building websites in Squarespace, there was always like, this is kind of what got me over to Webflow. Like there was always like a little thing that like I wanted to do, but like Squarespace is a little too cookie cutter. It's like a little too drag and drop. And so there's like a code injection area. And so I'd always just Google things and see how to do it with JavaScript or CSS. And I would just like try to like write it up myself and then put it in Squarespace and see what worked. Honestly, I did that enough times where I can actually write JavaScript really, like well now. I'm definitely a guy that leans on Stack Overflow for everything. But at the same time, I feel like for most code things on the 80/20 team, I'm still the one writing it. I think code is a very, very valuable thing to learn. I think a lot of people think that when they hear no code, it's like it's binary, one or the other. I totally don't agree with that. I almost think that like getting into no code was a stepping stone into code, because once you like get close, you're like, oh man, I want to know more. And you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then one day you know how to code. So I'm not formally trained, and I'm sure, honestly, sometimes I will send, like this last week, I sent a code snippet to someone that's traditionally trained. And I was like, hey, how do I improve this? Because like I said, I'm self-taught. So like getting feedback from people like that is super helpful in my journey to code.
You're trying to run a business too, so I'm sure there's a trade-off between spending the time learning to code and educating yourself and actually running a business.
Oh man, that is the thing I think about all the time. You know, it's one book that me and Andrew both really like is The E-Myth. I don't know if you've ever read that one.
Oh man, I got that.
You got it. You've got it on your desk. Love it. Yes, love it, dude. It's this whole premise of working on your business versus in your business. And like this time last year, which is when I took over 80/20, like we were 2 employees big because the company had like essentially just started like a few months earlier. So I was working on, like we had contractors, but I was working on everything. And it was so unsustainable. I was working the longest hours. I was stressed out all the time. But like fast forward to today, I'm rarely working on projects other than writing the code. But even then I'm like, okay, where is my time better spent? And it's like, I think it's on running the business, building the SOPs, building the systems, like Michael talks about, getting that into play and like building a team, which is what we're doing really aggressively right now. And then from there, figuring out, I want to see how much can I make. Like the goal is, when I was at Websterpeace, I could never step away from the business. Anytime, when I saw Andrew Street to build Berkshire Nerds, I was on my way to Rome for vacation. And I was in the airport building it. That was how all of my years of Websterpeace went. I never got to take a true vacation. And so now the litmus test of, is this a company that's sustainable, is can I go on vacation and shut off Slack and everything is fine? And I truly think that today I can do that. Will I do that? Maybe not, but maybe so. When I have gone on vacation in the past, I rarely have to check anything. And people will text me if it's urgent. But like now, I feel like I've gotten to this point where I'm working on the business and things are very self-sustaining.
You could probably spend all your days learning code. I mean, there's just so much out there. It's kind of that balancing act.
I think we've been talking about this internally. It's funny, as a no-code agency, I think I'm about to incentivize people on the team to learn how to code, at least take a basics of JavaScript class. And this is kind of me thinking about working on the business versus in the business. It's like, all right, how do I stop writing code and enable others to write it? And so it's like, hey, if we give you a raise, and if you complete this course and like have a certificate of completion, then this is a win for everyone. You're smarter, you can help clients, and I don't have to be in the code. But yeah, you're right. Nowadays, I probably could learn to code. Nowadays, though, I like to try to have a nice work-life balance and not work insane hours.
As a low-code, no-code design agency, how important do you think it is to balance the design aspect with kind of the technical parts of the business?
Yeah, design. That's the thing. A lot of people come to us with already designed projects, and because there's only 20 enterprise partners, Webflow enterprise partners, and we're one of them. And so a lot of people will come to us. They have their own in-house design team because they're a large company that's raised Series A to Series C. And they're like, hey, just build this. And like, that's totally fine for us. So we don't even think about the design in that regard. But like when we design from scratch, it's super important for us. You know, we go through the full, sometimes if the client allows for it, we'll hire our copywriter, bring her in and get her to literally lay out the site map, the content, like all of that stuff. Otherwise, the client will do it. And then you go through a pretty intense design process, putting it in Figma, generating ideas, getting a lot of feedback, especially on the first version, and then just iterating and deving it from there. But yeah, it's critical.
Also, web design is super competitive. So when you were getting going, how did you get your first clients and how did you get going?
Oh man, this is a controversial take. I probably wouldn't put it on Twitter. People would come for me at this point. I did a lot of work for free in the beginning. I understand that is a hot take and why it's a hot take and that people can't always do that. But it did have a lot of really, really great benefits for me. There is something like on some occasions I emailed people and I was like, hey, I'll build this for free. But on others, this is the one thing I've learned with everyone I've worked with on my dream clients list, which luckily I've had a really high hit rate on. A lot of times I will cold email them with some, and will already have built a website without ever talking to them. I'm like, hey, your website sucks in a nice way. And I rebuilt it. Like, what do you think? Because it's way different to like talk and like say you'll help versus like showing up with the damn thing. And it's like, hey, I am capable of like building cool stuff. I have realized that works really, really well in getting a client. And a lot of the clients that I did free work for, I would say most, above 90%, have converted into a paid client. That's how I built the initial client roster. I feel like it's literally trying to get clients on your portfolio however you see fit, and then keeping your head down and building and being consistent. That's like all it is. And it's all anything in life is, just being consistent and showing up to do the damn thing. So yeah.
80/20 is pretty successful now, but do you guys find it's tough to keep the momentum going? Like I said, web design is pretty competitive and there's a lot of guys out there. Are you guys kind of established now?
I worried the same when I first started. I was like, I don't know, can we keep this momentum going? Mm-hmm. We absolutely can. I mean, I feel like the last 2 months have been all-time record high net profit and revenue. We totally can keep up the momentum. It's largely I think it's a reputation business. In a weird way, it's also kind of like, might be a bad analogy. It's kind of like a hospitality business. People want to know that they can trust you with thousands of dollars, which I guess might not be the case with the hospitality business, but like they want to know that they're taken care of. They want to know that if something goes wrong, they have someone to call. They want to know that people care about them. And so we really try to hit the mark. Like we try to buy personalized gift for every client at the end of it. Like if we see one client recently, we got on a call and we had a wine seller buying. So we shipped them bottles of wine after the project was done. Like we try to do like a personal touch and make that experience really great. And when you make the experience great, people will talk about it. They'll tweet about it. They'll recommend it to their friends. We have VC companies as clients and they'll recommend it to their portfolio companies. And like I said, we're a Webflow enterprise partner. So they'll send us deals. We're in Andrew's orbit. And so like a lot of times MetaLab will get a deal and it's too small for them, but it's the perfect size for us. Mm-hmm. So we also have like things like referral deals with other agencies to where they'll get a kickback if they send something to us and we close it. Mm-hmm. So we try to make sure that we have a lot of streams of leads coming our way. Mm-hmm. And then we just have a high disqualification rate. We try to disqualify as much as we can over email, just so no one's this is the one thing I learned at my previous company. It's so tough to get on call after call after call, only to realize their budget is like $600 and you're at like $20,000. There's no point. It's a lose for everyone. Yeah, we disqualify pretty heavily over email. We have a lot of inbound, which is good. So I feel like, the momentum can definitely sustain itself right now.
When you started the business, did you have to put a bunch of money into marketing and getting going, or was it pretty light?
No, we spent $10,000 on one ad campaign once, and it was a total flop. And it was the worst spend. It was like, and it was a big investment at the time. Like I was like, I don't know, $10,000 is a lot. And it still is a lot today. But I was like, okay, I guess we'll try it. It was a newsletter. I think we bought a spot in it for a couple months. We had 0 leads, not even like maybe like 2 that came. at most,
Yeah.
but like nothing converted. So we don't do any paid ads to this day. A lot of what we do, like I said, is just word of mouth. It's just people tweeting about us, or I try to, as much as possible, I try to make it a really good workplace, which is honestly worked pretty well so far with like employees tweeting about the company. That's just like a nice bonus. And when employees tweet about it, their friends see it. It's just like a network effect of events. It's simple, right? If you think about it, it's you make your employees happy, and then they'll make your customers happy, and then customers will refer you, and then rinse and repeat.
So when a client comes to you, in your words, what would be the biggest value for a low-code, no agency to a small business, medium-sized business? What's your pitch, I guess?
Yeah. So a lot of the companies that come to us, if they want, like, let's say they have a marketing site and they decide that they're getting frustrated because engineering and IT own the website. And so to change something as simple as a piece of text or to upload a blog post, it'll take 2 to 3 weeks. You can never really, like, if you send it to them and there's a minor mistake, well, you're effed because it's going to take another week or two to get the change done. Marketing just wants to control the website because that's how they essentially hit their KPIs, but they can't. Not only does engineering want to release control because they don't want people touching code, marketing doesn't know how to code. And so a lot of the things we see and a lot of the shifts we see and we've seen it with the smallest of clients that we have all the way up to the publicly traded companies that we have as clients. They want to be autonomous and they want to own their stuff. And Webflow and no code allows for that. It allows for people without a coding background to jump in and change a string or upload an image or create pages. We a lot of times set up sites so you can literally copy and paste elements from page to page and build a brand new page on the fly. And so I feel like previously and still to this day, a lot of these companies will use like Instapage to build landing pages or something like that. But if we do our job right, they can just build it all in Webflow and use that. And so honestly, at the end of the day, it's just marketing teams feeling empowered and being able to make changes themselves. That's the biggest value prop. And it hurts at every organization I've ever talked to about this that has to deal with it. They're just like, we hate having to go through this process of like talking to engineering every time. So
kind of like WordPress, Elementor. Do you guys touch those?
Yeah, exactly. We don't, but Elementor and WordPress are very similar to Webflow. There's pros and cons to each, but Elementor is like the closest. It is the Webflow or the WordPress version of Webflow for WordPress. Yeah.
Right. Kind of set it up for the client. They can, in theory, take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's in theory, but it's not always.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't always work well. Even if we leave them with training videos and live training sessions, sometimes things will still get broken. But yes, in theory, it's a good idea. Most of the time it works, but sometimes it just doesn't.
What would you say are the biggest opportunities for businesses going forward in that kind of low code, no code environment? Is there kind of, like you said, the letting you take care of your own projects?
Yeah. Well, I think there's also this like benefit of, as no code is continuously and rapidly evolving. I feel like a big opportunity is for, instead of outlaying $250 to $1 million for a traditional web app build, you could build an MVP with, like, if it's a mobile app, you could use Glide Apps or Adalo or DraftBit. Like, there's all these tools and they range in complexity, but like Glide is like literally you hook up a spreadsheet and like you tell it what data you want to save, what user accounts do you want to have, things like that. And it'll allow you to create a PWA like instantly. And you could even convert it into an app. So the ability to create MVPs, especially as time goes on, things get even easier. I think that'll be a game changer because now you don't have to, if you have, this is for like, it's perfect for all these people that are like, I tweeted about this the other day. Like, I stopped telling people I worked in web design development and app development because everyone was like, oh, I have an app idea. This is perfect for people that say they have an app idea. No code will allow you to go do it yourself. You just have to have the initiative and like learn a little bit, a fraction of what you would need to learn for traditional development. and it'll get you. I mean, it's like the name. It's the Pareto principle. So 20% of the inputs will get you 80% of the output. So I think it's the biggest opportunity. MVPs.
Right now, you guys use a lot of other companies' proprietary software products. Do you guys ever consider making your own ideas, or maybe you do already?
We do have ideas around building products of our own, putting them out in the world, but they would probably not be an actual no-code builder. It would be products that sit on top, or like think of with Shopify, there are plugins. I believe that's what it's called in Shopify. Instead of Shopify, think of that for Webflow or a Chrome extension, something that sit on top. So we've toyed around with that ideas there, but like right now, I'm just focused on scaling the team. And then when we get to the point I want to get to, I'll focus our efforts into something else.
One worry I've always had is my little company building a web design agency is it's an agency and you're not really building a software product, but it sounds like building an agency can be pretty lucrative and successful too. I mean, it doesn't have to.
It can, but man, it's hard.
Well, that's my worry. Yeah.
I think you can, like anyone can be really successful at it. It takes so much time. I feel like I worked nonstop for like 6 years to get here, to the point where I can work a normal 8 to 9 hour day. And even then I'm still working long days some days, but agencies have the opportunity to be successful. You just have to commit to it. You have to figure out some way to separate yourself from the others, because there's so many. Even like value props, like we're all sharing a lot of the same value props. It's kind of like, to me, it's like the experience. I read this book the other day that an employee recommended, just called The Power of Moments. In it, there's a section about this hotel that a guest went to. And at the hotel, if you go to the pool, there is this like bright red phone right next to the pool where you can pick it up at any time. And it's called a popsicle hotline. And anytime, day or night, a butler will deliver like however many popsicles you want, whatever flavor you want, on a silver platter. And then you can just like have that popsicle. But it's such a memorable thing.
Right.
Like you will never forget that about the hotel. To me, I'm like, how do we translate that to a service business? How do we make things very memorable, very experiential? When you even hear about a conversation about tech, you recommend 80-20 or you talk about 80-20. That's what I'm thinking of. And I feel like you have to be able to think outside of the box. But then there's other things. I think you'd be surprised at how many agencies, like, yeah, there's a lot of agencies, freelancers. There are a lot that just suck at the soft skills. A lot of people think that I'm good at coding, so I'm going to go start a development shop. But like, if you can't talk to humans, you can't communicate well, and you don't hit deadlines, like it's super easy to laugh. And that's like, I honestly think that's like 50 to 60% of the agencies and freelancers that exist. There's like a 40% chunk, which is a large chunk. Most of them are just like, the 50 to 60% won't survive just because they're not hitting the soft skills, which are honestly, I feel like, equally important as the hard skills.
Got to balance the recipe.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. You know, I always racking my brain on trying to come up with a software product because of the agency problem and all that. Do you spend a lot of time trying to think of your next product? Uber?
I do. I do. It's fascinating. I think MailChimp is one of the stories of an agency. There's a lot of these agencies that turn software that like get really successful. Yeah, exactly. I do think about that, but I also know that a lot of my best ideas just kind of come to me, and like I don't actively think about it. So that's why it's like, all right, I'm just gonna keep my head down and like until I have an idea. Like I actually do have an idea for a software company, but like we're not gonna pursue it right now because I don't think we're big enough. But I think there's like there are ideas, but I try not to actively think about it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna stress myself out that I don't have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah, me
too.
So
yeah, that's the gist of it.
It's almost like it's a good training ground in some ways. You kind of learn all the tools and.
Yeah, you learn tools. You learn customer service more than, I don't know. I work retail. Customer service and retail sucks. You learn customer service really well in both. Probably slightly more in retail because you deal with a lot of the worst people on this planet in one place. But you also deal with, I mean, we've had our fair share of bad clients too. And so you learn a lot about people in an agency business. So.
Who do you look towards in terms of, do you have any kind of guys you draw inspiration from in business and entrepreneurship?
I do. I feel like there's a lot of the tiny CEOs, Aidan Hornsby, Farhan Mohammed, Adam Gilmer, people like that. Like I really love picking their brains. Carla Matheson, who's the old CFO of Tiny. I talk to her all the time. She's a great human being. But the one person I've been talking to a lot lately, we met because he's a client, but like over time he's become like a really good friend. And like we talk fairly often now. And his name is Matthew Smith. He goes by the Twitter handle @whale_animal on Twitter. And I honestly look to that guy a lot because this is something that me and one of my employees talk about. It's a lot of people on Twitter are like, oh man, I love my business coach because of, they listen to all my problems or whatever, or they help me figure out some solution to this interpersonal conflict. And it's like, man, sounds like you have a therapist. And like, that's a great thing to have. I try to think of people that are working on themselves as human beings, as people to look to for inspiration. People that seek out some form of self-improvement are super, super, super fascinating. Beyond like going to the gym, things like that. People that are like, hey, how do I become more thoughtful of a human being? How do I become a better human being? How do I help more people? Like, those are the people I'm fascinated with nowadays. And Matthew Smith is like one of those people. I talked to him and he's one of those people that like, sometimes when people are like, oh, I'm so happy, I'm like a little suspicious. Like you might be faking it a little just for the sake of like, in social media is everyone's highlight reel. Mm-hmm. But that guy, oh man, he'll tell you what's going wrong, but he'll tell you why he's optimistic. Like he injured himself recently and he was like, man, but I'm learning so much about biology and like the human anatomy. And like, he has this ability to just step back from like the problems in his life, the problems that he faces with other people. What's the more thoughtful solution about this? And I think becoming more thoughtful in a weird roundabout way, maybe not a weird roundabout way, in a roundabout way, just generally makes you a better entrepreneur. For me, like working on myself, I feel like gives me a lot better ability to lead a company. Me a year ago versus me today, oh man, two completely different people. And it's only because like I spent so much time working on myself and meeting people like Matthew that are just like really smart, really thoughtful people that can be like, hey, step back from this problem and think about it from another angle. Like those are the people I really look up to. We can always look up to the Jeff Bezos, how do I hack my calendar to get more time? There's not so many people I know that are like, hey, how do I become a better person in this world? And that's what I'm looking up to these days.
Do you have any good books you like to recommend, or what are you reading right now?
Oh man, I'm reading No Rules Rules by Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix. Yeah. I love that book. I feel one good thing I feel is like I was reading that book and like a lot of the things that Reed has is things that are already implemented at 80/20. Because like the one thing I really value is our culture right now. I feel like we have a really strong one. It's very much so like one of the things he talks about in the book is talent density, hiring people that are like good at their jobs and you treat them as adults. And this is a philosophy that I took from Andrew. Andrew is very like, he talks about this on podcasts. He's like, oh, I'm very hands-off with the CEOs. That's not like marketing speak. He's very hands-off. I rarely talk to him about 80/20. Occasionally, if I run into an issue, he'll be like, hey, talk to this person. He's hands-off. And so I'm trying to be that same way. You hire really good people, you get the hell out of their way, you keep it pushing. And so like with that, you get so many other benefits. Like we have an unlimited PTO policy and like people actually take it, which is good. But also we can trust people to make smart decisions about when they take time off. Like you don't take time off the week of a client launch unless you have delegated your responsibilities to someone else. And so that book is really great right now. Let's see. I have a lot of books behind me. Built to Sell, I think by John Warlow is a really good one. It's about this guy selling his ad agency. I thought that was really good. Insanely Simple. I can't remember who wrote that. I think it was a former design exec at Apple. I think that was just about Apple reducing decisions to like the simplest possible form. Just general like life tips. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi is a really good one. I feel like that's the part like early on that I was neglecting. Like I was like, oh yeah, I don't know, I make money and then I save money, but like I didn't really have a plan in place. So like that was a good one. I don't know, I'm kind of all over the place on books right now. I have another one that I really like called The Mountain Is You. It's kind of like a book about how do you overcome your own self-imposed obstacles. Yeah, that one's really, really, really good. I'm a fan of that. So yeah, It's all over the place.
All over the
right
map.
now.
I always ask
Yeah.
people what they're reading, and
What are you reading right now?
oh man, I got a pretty good list here. I got Einstein. Where is it? Isaacson. A lot of Isaacson. So
Okay.
yeah, a lot of biography. True Dog and Nike and all that.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know. Oh, Sapiens.
Yeah.
I just finished Sapiens.
I've heard that one's good. I haven't read it.
One of the better ones I've read.
I find it interesting that you have such a wide array of. It's like a wide array of tastes, but I feel like in some way, shape, or form, it ties back to like running a business.
Yeah, I've learned you can actually learn a lot in fiction too. You know, I used to kind of not read fiction.
I that's the one thing I wish I did more. Read fiction. I think at some point you just get too self-helped. Like you need to
Exactly.
take a break. So fiction is a important and helpful break, especially for the creative process too. You don't always be thinking analytical.
So true. Won't take too much more time. Maybe any advice to entrepreneurs out there starting out a business and you're in the tech world or in general?
Oh man, get on Twitter. That's the big. Twitter changed my life. It has given me every opportunity I've ever gotten, aside from actually doing the work. Twitter has let me meet everyone I could have ever imagined wanting to meet. Be active on there, participate in conversations, don't tweet stupid things. Yeah, I think people would be amazed at how well that can just totally transform your career. But
It's amazing to reach social media. Yeah.
yeah, no, I totally agree.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, like I said, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, check out rosebros.ca, where we will have upcoming shows. You can also find our coffee and chocolate there, where we plant one tree for every bag or bar sold through our partnership with One Tree Planted, a cool not-for-profit organization focused on global reforestation. Until next time, happy coffee drinking.